probably the trickiest thing to handle with an API is dealing with the process of authentication. So there are a lot of reasons why providers might require access keys. First of all, not all APIs do. NASA's image library is entirely free and open. So is Wikipedia. So anybody can access their APIs without registering, without having to supply any credentials. Okay? But most APIs today will require some kind of credential. First, they might see it as an opportunity to collect data on their API users. They just might want to know who is using the API and for what purposes. So for example, in the Jupyter Notebook, when we access a US Census data, we have to first get an access key from the Census API, and all we have to provide is our email address, and we have to agree to their terms of service. That is another big reason why they might give us make us get a key, for us to agree to their terms of service. Another reason, an API might want to put a limit on how much any one account can use the API. So there might be a rate limit, and that specifies the maximum total number of calls that one account can make to that API. So you might be restricted to, say, 50 calls in a minute. And computers could do way more than that, right? But if we had a whole bunch of computers accessing it more than that, it could overwhelm the back end and cause the entire web application to crash. So sometimes it's just to protect their own system. Some APIs charge for access. So Twitter has a free tier to get some tweets, but if you really want the universe of tweets from Twitter, it gets very expensive very quickly. And so there are different levels of access. And so you can get keys for the free tier, but then if you pay what they're asking for, then they'll give you different keys for the next tier. So there are a lot of reasons. For whatever reason, if you're in a situation where you have to have an access key, the first thing you need to do is find the documentation for the API online. You could just Google it or follow links on the main site for the data provider. When you find the API documentation, there isn't always, but there ought to be clear instructions in that documentation about how to register and about how to get an access key. Every data provider is different in terms of what information they're going to ask for. Some might need a credit card. Some might just need your email. Some might need you to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. So every single provider is going to be different. There's no general methodology for getting the access key. Just follow the documentation very carefully. This is important. Once you have your access key, you have to keep it secret. You have to treat it like a password. Don't share it. And if you're writing a script in which you are accessing the API, resist the temptation to list your access key in the code itself. Okay? You have to take steps to hide your access key if you're going to be sharing your code. So, what we're going to talk about next is a method for doing exactly that, for hiding your access key. So, beginners with APIs in Python will often include a line of code that looks just like this. So key equals, and then here's my big long string of random numbers and letters, okay? Now this will work. If you do this and create a variable in Python called key, you'll be able to use that variable key in all of the API stuff you do. But it will be a problem if you intend to share your code, because this line of code will appear and now everybody knows your key. It's like announcing your password to the world, okay? Instead of that, follow these steps. So first, open a console. Now remember, there are a few different ways you can open a console in Jupyter Labs. One way is to right-click your notebook and then select Open a Console from this notebook, okay? No matter how you open a console, open the console, okay? Load the environment for that notebook so that you have the working directory set. And then type !touch.env. Okay, this is creating a file for what are called environmental variables. Environmental variables are variables that are loaded in the background for Python, and they're not defined explicitly in your code. So you're creating a blank text file that's going to contain your environmental variables. It's important for it to be named .env, okay? So if you just type touch.env, you'll be good. Okay, step 2. Navigate to the folder, your working directory for this notebook. Navigate to the folder where you created that env file and open it. Now, on many computers, a file that begins with a dot is considered a hidden file. So you're going to need to find some way to reveal the hidden files to open it. On a Mac, you can press Shift, Command, and period together, and it will show the hidden files. On Windows, this is a website that walks through the steps for different Windows systems. And so you could pause the video and just navigate to this URL. Step 3. Once you've opened the .env file, you'll just see a text editor with no text, and you could start typing into it. So type your access keys into the text editor in this way. So name your key. You could just call it key. You could call it whatever. You could call it like Google key, census key, whatever. And then copy and paste your key from whatever mechanism the API gave to get access to your key. Don't put spaces here. Don't put quotes here. Just key equals and then whatever, okay? And if you have more than one key, you can put more than one key in this file. Just put them all on separate lines. Then save that file, okay? Now you have a .env file that contains all of your keys. The next step is to load that into Python. Here's how to load an environmental variables file into Python. You're going to need the .env library. So if you haven't yet done so, try pip install .env. Then you're going to need to import .env and import OS. You're going to need those two libraries. After you've done that, you need the following two lines of code. You need .env .load_.env. Okay? So that line of code, that first one, is what loads the environmental variables into Python. But now you need to take an environmental variable and turn it into a regular Python variable in Python's memory. So to do that, you're going to use the os.getEnv function. And so you can see key there in single quotes. That's going to be whatever it is you named that variable in the .env file. So for example, here I named it key. And so here I should write key. But if I named it Google key, I'd write Google key here, okay? Okay, that's it. Because now this variable key, this one, key, right here, is a Python variable that contains your secret access key, and now you can use it and will never be displayed in your code. So that is a very good way to keep your key a secret.